Welcome to the Moving to LA podcast, an idiot's guide made by people who have no idea what they're doing. I am your host, Jessica Sprague, along with my beautiful husband, Andrew. How are you?
Thank you so much, and so beautiful. Yeah. Apparently, I love it. Yes,
you're gorgeous.
And my handsome wife. Thank you so much, Jessica.
I am very handsome. Thank you for listening in. This is the first episode.
Episode 1.
Yep, this is the first episode of the Moving to LA podcast.
Return of Khan.
Yep, that's exactly. He had his wrath, and now he's back. So, just a little background. We are from Utah. We are a married couple from Utah. And we just moved here, by the time of this recording, I think it's been about 3.5 weeks since we got here. And we just wanted to, kind of just document everything, that we're doing here in LA. We moved here because we want to pursue comedy, specifically improv and writing and all of those things. But we're also huge fans of film, TV, and of course comedy, and living in LA is the place to, live if you're a huge fan.
Right. We're fans of old radio, poems in bottles found on the beach.
Yep, serial killers, all that
busking, stuff. Every form of busking. That's what it's called, right? Busking? I think that's where people do stuff on the street for money, like juggling and play music. I think that's that category.
I've never heard of that, but sure.
Well, let's go down Hollywood Boulevard and you'll learn all about it.
No, I mean, I've experienced it. I just know what it was called. Full disclosure, we really don't know what we're doing, and we are trying to figure it out as we go. Essentially, what our goals are as comedians is we are trying to live a life where we are financially stable and also working, doing something that we love, whatever that is,
AKA the dream.
Right. We're trying to
have it all.
We're not
be
trying
a young single woman in New York,
right?
And
exactly.
have a career.
We both are doing that. We don't have goals of being famous or anything like that necessarily. We just want to make enough money that we could live here and be financially stable and love what we're doing, and that could be writing, that could be performing, all that stuff. So just so everyone knows, we started this because we just wanted to document our journey from the beginning, because we have always listened to successful people on interview shows kind of talk about how they got to where they are, but kind of just glaze over it really quick, and then anyway I wrote for the small TV show, and then I got the big thing, and it's well, how did you even get to the small TV show in the first place?
How did you find an apartment and not get murdered?
Yeah,
that's what I'm worried about.
Right. So that was a big reason why we started this podcast. So, we're not saying we're going to get successful. We have no idea. Of course we don't.
We might get stabbed or murdered next week, as I'm predicting.
This could be the only episode.
Return of OJ.
Right. But
he had his wrath.
You're right. He had his wrath and he's returned. So we also understand that there's no one path for everyone to get into the biz. There's so many things you could do, and we're going off of things that we've been told, or we've heard other people say, oh, I did this and this and this, and that's how I got there. So we're just going to be trying a bunch of different things to get to that place, but also along the way, we also just wanted to talk about living in LA. No matter what dream you're going after in LA, we wanted to document things that different experiences that we had, and what are the informational things that you need to know about LA, what are the restaurants you should go to,
the ups, the downs, the pros, the cons, as well as the inside scoop, getting to know people here, and you can join along for the ride. Because when we were looking to move out here, and we'll talk about all of that, the stuff that went into that, but just knowing that we were going to come out here, we would have loved to have a resource to kind of follow along the path from the very beginning, choosing to move out here, where to live, all that kind of stuff, as well as chronicling getting a job and meeting new people and going and doing new things. We weren't able to find much with that, so we said, oh, that would be a great idea for us to start a podcast, not only so our friends and family can hear what we're doing and kind of give us a reason to go out and try all these new things so we can talk about them, but as well as just an easy way to give back to everything that helped us, all the karma that kind of helped us get out here, to other new listeners who are potentially looking to move out to LA and want kind of an idiot's guide to how to do it, especially people who are trying to break into the entertainment industry and are working, real hard at it and have true goals with it. So I think that this is going to be a great tool for people to be able to use as well. It's just a lot of fun. I think we're going to have a lot of comedy on the show and interview a lot of great guests. We're very pragmatic when it comes to trying to get new people with new ideas. So I'm interested in that, and hopefully the listener will be as well. Right,
exactly. And we'll try to, as we meet people, obviously we'll probably have comedians that we meet and become friends with and things like that on here, but we'll try to get
Sir Ian McKellen,
is
rumored to appear in the next couple episodes.
So we'll see. He's a stand-up comedian now.
What's the deal with cell phones? You see, you have to answer them in order to speak to somebody else. I wish there was a doorbell feature on a cell phone. You see.
It's called a ringtone. Oh, man. He should do it. That works out. But we'll try to get guests that have different, goals than we do as well. So it's not just a linear, only comedians, informational, how do you get
but
there.
The podcast truly being about LA.
Right, exactly. So this episode will be a little longer. We're going to try to keep it pretty short in the long run. But this one is just like we need to kind of introduce ourselves, kind of give you the full background, help you as the listener understand like what our background is and why we got out here and all
as
those
well as
things.
the show format and how things are going to go here on in that you can count on every episode. So, yeah.
Right, exactly. So I'll just read off some questions to you, Andrew, and then I'll answer them after you, just kind of so we can get the gist of
Great. How about you read the first one to me, and I'll answer it, and then you answer it, and then I'll read the second one, and you answer it, and then I'll answer it.
Okay.
Away we go.
All right. So where are you from?
It feels like we're on a first date. This is kind of fun.
We are. We've never met before.
Right. This is a podcast about meeting a stranger on
marriage.
Craigslist and having it work out. So I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. I'll never forget my Texas roots. Just like I'll never forget the Alamo, or I never forget 9/11 or Pearl Harbor or any of the other great American tragedies. So I'm a Texan at heart. And then I moved to Kansas, Olathe, Kansas, when I was about 10 years old. So two pretty red states as far as that goes. I grew up LDS, that's Mormon for most people. However, I'm no longer a member of that organization, and we'll get into, I'm sure, a lot of that as we go on. But it's not a huge part of the podcast, but a part of my backstory, having lived a conservative life in my childhood and having conservative parents to now being out here in LA and being a hardcore liberal and, supporter of the Democratic Party and all kinds of wonderful democratic socialist beliefs. Anyways, so I moved to Utah when I was about 20 years old. I had tried to go on a mission for the LDS Church, but then I got sent home for all kinds of crazy stuff that I'm sure we'll get into on one episode if I talk to a buddy of mine or something. But I was given a scholarship at Utah Valley University for rugby, and I was a rugby player, so I went out there and played for a little bit. And then I got into some comedy stuff, but we'll answer that in just a second. What about yourself, sweetie? Where are you from?
Well, I am from Utah. I have lived in Utah my entire life.
What kind of pioneer? Do you have pioneer ancestors? Like,
yes.
How did they get to Utah?
Yeah. I think I have ancestry going all the way back to maybe at least Nauvoo, but maybe a little further back, like with Joseph Smith in New York. Like, my family runs pretty deep LDS.
If anybody has no idea what we're talking about, just go watch the Book of Mormon musical pirated on YouTube,
really just
or listen to it.
Anything. I don't know. It's
promise this won't be a heavy part of the show.
No, it
but
really
it is
won't.
a part of our.
But it also
right?
was like a huge part of our lives. So it's just.
But born and bred Utah through and
Yes.
through. Both your parents from Utah.
Yes, they both were born in Utah. My mom grew up in Nevada, though. But yeah, I was born in Utah and raised, and you know,
been worried had you not
assume.
been raised. But
I've always wanted to be an actress, like ever since I was maybe 7.
What movie or show made you first?
Oh gosh, Lord of the Rings.
Oh, great!
I've always been a huge Lord of the Rings fan, but that was that movie I was just so enthralled with as a kid, and I just kind of realized I was like, I really want to do that, you know, like I wish I was in the world. First of all,
I wish I want to do him.
I wish I wanted to do him, and that means
Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
No, you shall not pass.
Well,
Jessica,
I'm more of a Christopher Lee gal,
I'm
so.
a homosexual.
Yeah.
I cannot.
That's so sad.
I'm not trying to mate with you.
So, long story short, I just was obsessed with it and was really wanted to be in the world of Lord of the Rings, and I realized I could if I was an actor. And fast forward to what got you into comedy specifically?
Great. Well, let's have you answer, and then you can jump back to me. So how did you get involved in the comedy? We can kind of show our intertwining story, and I
sure.
can kind of do the reverse from there, and you go, and that's where you met me, and I'll lead the story from how I got there.
Okay. So I've always enjoyed making people laugh. That was a big thing in my life. I don't know necessarily where it came from. I mean, my dad is a person who loves making people laugh, so maybe from him. I was very, I don't know. I'm not like a class clown type person. I'm a very obedient person. I very much follow the rules. But I always somehow knew when it was appropriate to be funny, and that was something that I just, like, I don't know, people knew me as this very quiet person that I, like, just was funny all of a sudden. But I never harnessed that, really. I just, like, I still thought, oh, I'm just gonna be an actress. I didn't really think about comedy as a career outside of maybe doing, like, comedic plays or films or whatever. How I got into improv specifically, so at my high school, I think it was like my junior year, my cousin...
You went to Rydell High, correct?
I went to Rydell High.
In 1953.
Yeah, and in the summer I met a boy. Yeah. I'm from Australia. And
did he put up a fight?
No, he did not. But I did. And so anyway, so my cousin was like, oh, there's this, because he went to school with me at the time. He's like, oh, there's this improv troupe that's coming to teach high school classes, and I was like, okay. I didn't really want to do it because improv in high school is a nightmare, because we would play that sometimes in drama class, and oh my god, like it was just everyone just was either killing each other or dying somehow or screaming at the top of their lungs. Like improv's just, I mean, most improv is pretty bad, but in high school improv is awful. So I didn't really want to do it, but my cousin begged me to do it. So I was like, okay. And through there I met our friend Craig, who taught the improv from this place called Comedy Sports in Provo. And so I did classes, and I realized, I kind of like that. And so I decided to get a job at Comedy Sports after I graduated high school, and that's kind of how I met Andrew. I kind of knew him a little bit before that. He was a performer at Comedy Sports, so that's where we met, so go ahead and continue.
Wonderful. Well, I'll kind of memento that. I'll show in reverse order. So we met at that comedy club where you were working there, and I was performing. I had gone to one of their shows years before that, and I'd kind of always loved doing comedy. I was the class clown, always getting in trouble, as well as, the fun teachers, enjoyed it, and the teachers that weren't so fun probably hated it. So I spent a lot of time in detention or wearing the dunce hat or that kind of thing.
I hope you did do that. Right. I hope that's a real thing.
You know what? They probably wouldn't have done it because I would have found a way to try to amuse the class with it or whatever. So that would have just been giving me a weapon to use. And I had loved the show Whose Line Is It Anyway, amongst others, but I kind of always just loved the natural playfulness of Ryan Stiles and Colin Mockery, as well as others. And when I went to that improv show, I mean, some shows can be really bad. I'm sure a lot of people, especially if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully have been to an improv show, but if not, some of them are real hit and miss. It's kind of like the movie industry. There's a lot of great movies and there's a lot of garbage out there. So really, you never know what you're going to get. But there was a lot of brilliant performers that happened to be in the show. And I just completely fell in love with the form, as well as kind of just thinking about performing, because I'd only really thought about a performer as either being a stand-up or in a band or something like that. There's no real other way to get on stage and do anything unless you were doing that. And this introduced something that I'd always been a person who did make-believe and played with my friends and was able to, create voices and have all kinds of fun and take things serious that weren't serious so that we could have, more enjoyment and role-playing games, not necessarily the Dungeons and Dragons, but just more out and about. And so I went and took their classes and slowly, worked my way up the ranks and became a performer there, where we met. We got married shortly after. We moved to Salt Lake City so that you could go to the University of Utah. And we started a troupe called Crowdsourced Comedy when we moved to Salt Lake City, because we really wanted to focus more on getting to know the audience, as well as being able to do improv scenes that are based on what we decide, rather than having pre-created games or things that we were going to play, which can be fun at times. I have no problem with what they call short form. I do enjoy being able to kind of create the sketch on the go and kind of create our own idea of what's funny about it, as well as intimately get to know the audience and get great conversational stories from members out there that are just interested to come, and we, get them on stage and talk to them. So we created that and were able to perform with them for about 5 years before we came out here. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a second, but that's kind of my journey to getting to being interested in being a performer, as well as a producer, someone who's put on shows and classes and worked with countless other people trying to make something. So I'm very excited to be in California, where this is kind of the hub of everybody trying to do that. So I'm happy to be another cog. I'm not worried about being an A-lister. That's foolishness. I would be very lucky to just work in the industry and, being able to hone my craft even more.
Right. I'll just kind of give a timeline of how long it took for us to actually finally take the leap. So, like you said, I went to the University of Utah. I got my bachelor's degree in acting. So I am classically trained, which is great. But
it's so funny. Everybody says classically trained when it's adding this. Is there such a thing as unclassically trained? What's the opposite?
I mean, I don't really know. I think it's just like if you don't really, if you don't really learn.
Are you trained classically? No.
I don't know, I guess. Like, I feel like anytime that you take classes and do shows that have to do with classical work, that is classically trained.
I see, right. Like the Shakespeare's.
Right,
and
right.
I see.
So I kind of was doing some, I was auditioning for things, pretty much only plays, because that's what I was trained in. I didn't get any jobs for like 2 years. I would always get very close to getting a job, and then I would not get the job. I would get like a callback, all that stuff. So but also along the way, and it's not necessarily because...
It was the friends you made.
Yeah, it was, but I was also kind of like trying to figure out like, okay, well, obviously I love doing plays, but that's not really what I want to do. And I think I've known that for a long time.
It's really limiting, right?
Right. It's super limiting. And I feel like if you want to actually be a successful working regional theater actor, you have to be going and traveling all the time. Like, it's very hard to just stay in one place and be a regional theater actor. So I was like, I don't know, like, it's fun to do a play every so often. I still will probably audition here and there. But I was like, I really would like, if I'm going to be an actor, I want to do film and television. Like, that's what I really have always wanted to do. I kind of started to shift my focus onto that. I got, like, a commercial. I did a couple student films and things like that. Nothing big, which not that I expected anything big. But I kind of just, like, after a while, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot more opportunity in LA, especially if I could, like, actually get really just a job that could pay pretty well. You know what I mean? Like, I could actually do that in LA. I can't do that in Utah, you know? At least not really.
You can't go to the Price is Right every day.
I know, and Utah. Like, why would I want that?
That's our financial plan, is to just so hopefully win, go on the grand giveaway or whatever day.
We're never gonna have a job. That's just what we're gonna do. And we also, you know, along the way, as I was kind of figuring out that acting thing, I also was like, well, I really do think I should focus on comedy as well. I'm like, I think I'm good at it. At least I hope I am. So I yeah, that was a joke. I did it.
That was great.
So I focused more on improv and on crowdsourced and front row
and producing.
And producing, yeah, that's true. I have started kind of like in the be in the producing realm, performing realm. I run the social media for both businesses. I don't anymore because obviously I'm not a part of it.
Front of house for both.
Right. Like I kind of just immerse myself in pretty much anything that I could do. I help teach classes, even though I hate teaching and I do not consider myself a teacher, but I did help do that.
And you still have some pending charges.
Yeah, I do.
For an assault.
Yeah. I pretended to bring. I brought out a pantomime gun in a scene and was immediately arrested. Right.
I'm sorry, I had to do a citizen's arrest.
I know.
I thought I saw something.
It's true.
Going on.
But anyway, so when we started crowdsourced, it was super slow to gain traction. Not very many people coming to our shows.
Right. Salt Lake City's not really a big comedy town, especially alternative comedy.
Yeah, and really improv's just kind of like no one. It's hard to get people to want to go to an improv show.
It's gotten a bad rap for the most part, if people have even heard of it at all. So
yeah. It's like if you go in the Salt Lake area, everyone just like hates improv, and then if you're down like in the Provo area, everyone's like, oh, do you do it at Comedy Sports? And like they love improv, but they only know Comedy Sports and like love it. And
it definitely is growing there for sure. It is, yeah. But there's nothing compared to the Chicagos and Los Angeles of the world as far as just the sheer amount of theaters, as well as people who are interested in going out and doing something, having a drink at a place that's having some kind of live entertainment. Like even the plays in Utah, you can't drink at, and that's just an easy way for theaters to be able to make money and pay their bills and stuff. So they're not able to get that kind of not write-off, but other side of the business model that most people are. So
like I literally had people when I was running the door for the first year that we did it. I had people come in and be like, "What kind of comedy show is this?" And I go, "Improv," and they're like, "Oh." And then they just leave.
Jumped out the window.
Oh, okay.
Comically.
Like, okay, bye. So it was really slow, and we really wanted...
What crazy thing to go all the way over to ask, not have any ability to call or go on the website, to just ask and then walk away. Because this theater's not like on Main Street. Anyways, that's interesting.
Well, yeah, to the point where I'm like, you might as well just stay and see how it goes. I don't know. But so we struggled for a while, and then finally, after a couple of years, we finally got people who were noticing our classes and our shows, and we started meeting people who were very good and very funny, and that really helped us kind of gain a little bit of notoriety in Salt Lake. And
within the last year before we moved here, we have sold out classes. We've had shows. I mean, not that this is our humble brag.
No, but it's
R.I.P. Harris Whittles, but
right.
It's just kind of a lead up to why we felt it was right to come out here, as well as that we could potentially do this because we were able to create so much, and we have kind of the producer's mentality. Not that you care, but if you're listening to this podcast, hey, we'll assume you are because you won't hear this if you're not.
Yeah, the point of us bringing up like the success of our businesses is because it just shows like, hey, even in a place like Salt Lake, if you persevere and you just make your own stuff, like things can happen, you can meet people who will help you launch into actually having those opportunities and keeping it afloat, because it's a lot of work. Like people really, like, honestly, there's no one who understands how hard running a business and all those things more than Andrew, because he really just kept it afloat for so long. It's so difficult to do. But the reason we bring this up is yes, you can succeed wherever you are, but also a lot of people ask us like, well, if you're doing so well in Salt Lake, why would you leave? Why would you go to LA? And it's like, well, this is pretty much the most we can do in Salt Lake, is like have a really fun side thing that we're doing that's great, and we make some money from it, not a lot though.
That's great. Local people know all about it.
Right, and it's so fun, and we're doing it with our friends, but we're also like, but there's no way to make this an actual
career. We can't
career.
Scale this into something more.
Like, we would have to always be working another job, and we don't want to
do
that.
Or go all in on, we got to open a theater, and we would have to get a liquor license.
Like, it would just get much more difficult.
So many, what-ifs when you live in theocracy of Utah with Mormons. The Mormon Church controls everything. But because everything was going, to piggyback on what you were saying, because everything was going so well, and we learned so much about the ins and outs. So many people, when you hear, I'm going out to LA to go into the entertainment industry, it's like, they're going to eat you alive. You're going to be so disappointed and all that. And luckily, for the last almost 5 years or so, we have been quote unquote grinding.
Yeah, we have been eaten alive many times.
We have done so. We have been the highs of highs where we've booked private shows for thousands of dollars and been able to do live comedy in front of hundreds of people in shows that we produced, as well as the lowest of lows, having a class when we first started out where, one student signed up, or,
or we did a
whatever.
show.
We did a show for one person who
literally
became, when we first started.
Right. And it was crazy because that one person actually really loved the show and ended up being in our troupe for a little while until he moved to
Colin
Seattle.
Smith, a talented performer.
Right.
But we realized that as people who didn't want to just make it in the business because I just want to be an actress or a model. I'm so beautiful. I need to be out on billboards.
You
Our
do
mindset.
Such a good impression of me.
Oh, thank you. No, I was just picking the Hollywood bow, but we love to create, and we've seen the ability in ourselves to create all this wonderful stuff with other people. Obviously, we couldn't have done it without them, and learned all the ins and outs, the frustrating parts of comedy that you don't think about, dealing with owners of theaters, booking spaces, hiring performers, doing our taxes, filing insurance, all the social media, the best ways to promote material and keep everybody in our troops happy, have classes that are safe for everyone, as well as that have material that is interesting and new to the area, as well as true to ourselves. All of those things we were able to do, and now we know here in LA, we'll just have so much more of a support network because there's so many people trying to do that same thing that we'll be able to team up and, form our wills and our knowledge, as well as have the ability to scale it whenever it does become something that we want to talk to people about, trying to put it in a different, atmosphere, whether it is anything to do with our improv or a front row film roast or a TV show or as something that we help somebody else create, somebody else who's already is famous and doing comedy and needs writers or producers or all kinds of amazing stuff. That really the sky's the limit is why we're out here, because we don't know where the opportunity is going to come from, but there's just so many that we'll be able to try for. And so because of Front Row Film Roast and Crowdsourced Comedy, we had the confidence to be able to leave those in the hands of our friends and business partners, to be able to come out here and further our pursuits of being able to do more of that.
Right. And anyone who, if you are in Utah or visit Utah, definitely check them out. They're still going. We probably will do shows when we come out and visit, because we'll probably be out in Utah. But yeah, definitely check them out. We left them in really good hands. Like we said, they're very, very funny people. Okay. So let's kind of move on and just quickly talk about like preparing to move out here. And then we can kind of we could just talk about the preparation first, and we can kind of talk about coming here and the first few weeks that we've been here in another episode. So the big thing that we did to prepare was obviously save money.
Right. Tip number one should be the biggest thing. You have got to save some cold hard cash. I would think it would be quite foolish to try to come out here if you were a person who is just hoping you'll find a roommate and then that will be able to supplement or any of those kinds of things, because there are just so many hidden costs. I mean, people say LA is expensive. It definitely is, but it's not necessarily just from the groceries being slightly more. It's just all these hidden things that you don't think about. But yeah, we saved some cash. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were lucky because we were able to live with my parents after I graduated. We lived there for a little over 2 years. We were very lucky with that. I'll give a number of about what we saved before we got our apartment, just to kind of give someone the idea. This is not a number that we felt was a necessity. It just kind of came out that way, but we saved about $12,000. And we got rid of a ton of debt as well. Once again, this was over 2 years. We were running 2 businesses and also working full time. Like, we worked very, very hard for that money. So I don't think it's necessarily to get that much, but definitely try to get, I would say, several thousand, because
obviously it's dumb to say have as much as you can, but realistically, the minimum, you should even think remotely would be $6,000. And if you have a good plan of what you're going to do, where you're going to live, how much money it's going to cost. If you don't, then,
because I mean, our apartment is like $1,500, which is really not bad, but that money goes by very, very fast. And I feel like even if you live with a roommate, what I've seen is like the rooms can be like $700 to $800, about what we're paying per person for just a married couple.
Right. We got a dog who doesn't chip in.
We also have a dog, which makes things a little more expensive. So it's just like those kind of things you have to kind of put into, into play. It's like, okay, there are a lot of things that all these extra things I'm going to have to be paying for, especially like parking and things like that. So once we kind of had an idea of like when we were leaving, we waited till about a month before we wanted to move, which was February 1st, was like the date we were kind of just saying we were going to move. So we didn't really start. I kind of looked around for a while, but I obviously wasn't serious for the like several months before that, because I'm like, obviously I'm not moving out right now. But it was difficult because like a lot of apartments just go really, really fast, or some of them say like you have to move in within like a week or two. And so the difficulty of us coming from out of state is that we have to travel down here to actually look at the place. And so it's A, expensive to do, and then B, we have to really be trying to find a place that will actually, like, because it's like you can secure a place, but then you have to start paying rent at a certain time. Right. So it's like we went down the second week of January.
To Georgia.
Yeah, we went to Georgia.
What was it we were looking for to steal?
A soul, I think. And so...
yeah.
Yes, a soul. But, so we came down here mid-January because we were hoping that would give us enough time to find an apartment, but also wasn't too early in the month that it would be like you have to start moving in January 15th and then you have to pay 2 weeks of
waste
rent.
a month's rent.
When we weren't going to be moving here till February. So that was kind of a little difficult, but we were really, really lucky. We got down here the first day. We looked at a bunch of apartments. We looked at the apartment we ended up getting that day, and we decided, you know what? Like, it's not absolutely perfect. Sure, we'd love to have like a pool. We'd love to have parking space for both of our cars. But in reality, like, it has the necessities that we need, which is a parking spot at least, and then there's street parking for the other car, and it's dog friendly and it's close to everything. Like, we live in East Hollywood, and that's really close to a couple comedy clubs that we are trying to train at called UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade, and we're like really super close to both of the theaters that they have. So we were just like, all right, let's just you know, pull the trigger. Let's just tell her that we want it, like tell the lady. And so the next day we were actually like, we signed the securing the deposit and all that stuff.
Well, let's talk real quick before we get to right after that, just giving people a little bit of tips and tricks on how we were able to find that place, because so much of it is, you ask everybody that lives in California, oh, where should we live? And everybody says a million places that you can never remember. And it's not like you just go over to that area and you just find a place. So, of course, there is the apartments.com, the Craigslist of the world.
Which are the two that I would say
are the biggest ones, right? There might be one or two more if you just type in, you know, LA apartments into Google. But things to watch out for, and then I'll let you talk about, you were talking about the, you know, amenities and things, the must-haves, but there are a lot of scams on there, which is why it's really important to go and look at the place before you're going to sign it, because so many places inferred as if it was just normal to send the money over and reserve a space, just to look at it.
Like,
and it's like, a lot of these places are probably just trying to scam people who are feeling that itch to, like, I gotta go on with my life. I'm moving out to LA. I want to book a space right then and there. So definitely do not do that, because they're littered with it. We even tried to go see a few places, and they would either be like, "Oh, that place isn't available anymore. Let me show you something else." And it's like, you were putting something that was too good to be true online, hoping that people would just show up and take whatever you gave them regardless. So watch out for those scams. Like I said, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. As well as there's good and bad places in almost every section of the city. You really want to find, where are you going to be going? Are you going to be working near there? Are you going to be spending a lot of time at USC or at the beach, or where are you going to be spending most of your time? That's where you should try to live, rather than trying to find the perfect place in a random part of LA that somebody told you to, you know, look forward in.
Yeah, because like you said, I would just see what areas those things are and then go from there. Don't even bother asking anyone where to live, because like you said, they will tell you a million places,
and it won't matter.
It won't matter. Like, I have no idea if we chose a place that people recommended. I couldn't tell you what they recommended, because I would immediately just zone out anytime they would talk to me about
unless you
it.
have a specific situation, like I'm a freshman at USC. Okay, well, you're gonna want to live.
But even then, it's like, okay, where is USC? Let me look at places around there. How long is the furthest away that am I willing to travel? So just the necessities, we would say, of getting an apartment is just advice that we were looking at online was and
that we've learned since having lived here.
The short time that we've been here is you for sure need parking off street. There is street parking like everywhere, but the fact of the matter is that you're in a very busy, like at least we are in Hollywood, and a lot of people live there, and a lot of people travel and vacation there, and so the street parking goes really fast.
And the street parking enforcement is everywhere. They do not fuck around.
Right.
It's our first F word for the podcast. So this is an explicit show, but they are everywhere. Luckily enough, we have really tried to avoid any kind of illegal parking, but it's just so hard around here. And this is not New York. You can walk to the places that are near you, but being able to think, oh, I'm going to walk to work, and then I'm going to walk to the show, and I'm going to do that, it's just not reality. It's just too spaced out.
And it's hot, and, it's kind of hard to walk for a long distance when it's hot outside.
So that parking is killer. You've got to be able, you don't want to leave work and then come home and have to have that be the problem you're dealing with, is driving around for 20 minutes trying to get near where you live. So parking.
Yep. And then we already talked about proximity, but also like what we absolutely needed was a dog friendly apartment because we have a dog, and that was actually kind of surprisingly hard to find a dog-friendly apartment. I don't know why.
Why do you say surprising? I think most people probably do have that struggle, I imagine.
For some reason, I thought, like, LA seems to be a pretty dog-friendly city. I mean, I would say maybe
the people are, but maybe not the rental owners.
That's the thing.
That's
the thing is that I'm like, well, then I would
assume
that it would just be in every way, but I guess not. So I was a little surprised by it, but it's whatever, and if you have a dog or plan to get a dog, just understand that once again, you have to save that money to make sure. But anyway, so those were the three things we were looking at, was like, can we at least get one parking space, because it was really difficult to find two. So Andrew and I kind of just figure it out of like using my car mostly, because I'm the one who actually parks in the spot, and use his only when it's necessary. But those are the things that we absolutely found. That's why we found the place so fast, is because we just were like, okay, it has these three things. It's within our budget. Let's just drop the ball right now. So don't expect coming out here to have an absolutely perfect everything you want, at least at first. You may be able to find it later.
Right. If you can get a short lease, great. You can get 6 months, 4 months, that would be perfect, so you can know exactly where you're going to be living and what accommodations you're not quite used to living without. But and so I would just compromise on the other things of like, it would be nice to have laundry in unit or in the building. Partners.
Yeah.
You have when you come out.
Yeah, just understand that, like, you may, for the first year or two, just have to live. Just think about, like, can I live here for however long the lease is? If I can, great. Right. Let's just do it, because worst case scenario is I sell my lease, because there's really not much else you can do. So all the apartment stuff, that's kind of just like our experience and like tips, and there may be better tips that, if you have a suggestion, let us know, like, of finding apartments, what really are the best places to live.
Right. And we'll definitely put links in the podcast description for people who are interested, ones that are different other than just Craigslist. But. Exactly.
So then the other thing we did before we moved is because we had to drive. It's like a 9.5 hour drive, if just straight through, from where we lived in Utah to where we live here. And so we checked our cars, just made sure that it was like, we just put it into a mechanic and just said, hey, just see if there's anything that we need to do. And that made the drive here go
Got new
really
tires
smoothly.
Just to make sure. It's so much better to feel safe at mind.
Yes, because you don't want to break down an I-15. Like, that would be...
you've built so much momentum to go, and that's a big key in moving, is keeping your momentum going, because it just can be very disastrous and negative when you first arrive. Obviously, we'll talk about that in further episodes, our arrival and all of that, but most definitely want to get your cars looked at or whatever you're taking out here.
Exactly, and that may be, your
electric scooter, your Lime scooter, if you're riding that out here.
I should try that. Electric scooter all the way out here. That may be a given. It may be very obvious, but it was just something we did. Some people just may not think about it.
Sure. And budget is a great...
Yes. We got a moving truck.
Right. A lot of people, U-Haul's the name brand, but they're twice as expensive
budget's like
and
half
really don't get any
price.
benefits. So
exactly.
We were able to get a budget truck, but going along with that quick story, just showing you the kind of hell that leaving can be, and that it can still be done, and you can prepare for the worst. I went to pick up a mattress. Our in-laws had our old mattress stored in their attic, and they had accidentally given it away to somebody, so they ordered us a new one, and I was going to go pick it up with our budget truck the day before we moved, before we started loading literally everything else we had, and they would not give me the mattress because my name wasn't on the receipt, but I had everything they needed. I told them, hey, it's my father-in-law. They would not give me this $400 mattress. So I had to go into the car, wait a little bit, and then call back and act as if I was my father-in-law over the phone and kind of put on a voice and was just real ticked off with them that this was happening, and giving them information that I literally just read off the receipt that they refused to give. And I think she knew the jig was up, but there wasn't any way she could actually call me out on my bluff, because she probably knew. It's like, oh, that's that same guy that was just in here and was in a huff that I wouldn't give it to him, and now this other person's calling me. It sounds the same way. But I was able to get the mattress in there, and as I was driving away, the back of the budget truck just clipped a bunch of handicap railing. And for liability's sake, for my lawyer, if anything happens, their employee was pointing me forward and told me to pull forward, and so that was a reason why I caught it. But luckily enough, I didn't injure anything or didn't do any damage. I don't think trucks can be injured, maybe their feelings, but I didn't injure anything on the truck. But I think it probably would have been smart to make sure and get like the extra liability for the moving, just because you want to make sure you're covered in every dumb situation. Right. Especially because right after we boxed everything in the budget truck, we were going to leave on Monday morning. And stop me if you have something to say before this. We were going to be leaving on the Monday morning, I think February 3rd, and there was the biggest blizzard that we have been in the 10 years I lived in Utah. It has never been more snowy and windy at the same time. So whatever you want to call that, I'm sure blizzard is the perfect word, but that it was just everywhere. And that is what we had to leave in. So I'd imagine that the liability insurance for the truck would have gone even further, because who knows what kind of damage could have happened. But I'll let you launch in from our final push to leave.
So we'll kind of that was just the preparation. We can talk about like actually getting here and settling in and all of those things in the next episode. But just the last thing I wanted to talk about was so what kind of jobs are we applying for that we kind of believe would give us the pathway to potentially writing, performing, that sort of thing. So I've been applying for, I applied for the CBS page program. I've applied for the Paramount page program. I've applied for a bunch of production assistant jobs for lots of different movie productions and studios. And so I'm just waiting to hear back on that. Obviously, like, I'm just trying to be in the industry. Like, I have no problem starting from the very bottom, being a PA, a gopher, whatever. Like
the Drake method, starting from the bottom.
Exactly. And then I can be here. And then, because I had always heard just start at the bottom. It doesn't matter. Just be in the industry in any way possible. And it's work really hard.
Who you meet, not necessarily.
And just work hard at what you're doing. Don't just like have a bad attitude about it. I'm like, I would never have a bad attitude about working in the film or TV industry in any way.
I would never
have
a fucking bad attitude about that. Why would you say that?
As long as they don't get in my way, I won't have a problem with it. Okay?
Jessica, you're gonna be great in Hollywood.
I'm gonna do it. And so anyway, so we're gonna do. I'm trying to get jobs with that. I haven't heard anything back quite yet. I'm sure that they take their sweet time.
There's all kinds of those jobs, so I'm sure. I mean, we're fingers crossed, but
right.
You'll be able to get some kind of introductory into meeting people and then being able to get jobs from there, I'm sure, is just the way it is. Once you're in the industry, it's all getting to know the people who are in there and learning who does what and how you can learn more and do that. So I'm also interested in doing the similar things, as well as I would love, my dream job would be able to work at UCB and kind of in their management and teaching, but that's, years down the road. We'll see what happens. I just want to take classes first and start getting involved, as well as I'm excited to just continue to produce the stuff we're doing. I know I could go a little further into the production side of it, but we're both trying to look for similar things, trying to get into the production of film and television or other similar things at a professional level of people who are, the Universals and CBS and Fox and studios, to get more of that kind of work on our resumes, but continuing to produce front row film roast and potentially do crowdsource comedy shows out here and doing this podcast and moving forward, because so much of the comedy world is what we're doing right now. It's like working class comedy. There's not necessarily you have to be Jerry Seinfeld anymore to being able to have a career, in the world. You can kind of make yourself, obviously, as we've seen many YouTube stars, and not necessarily in that order, but there is a place for people like us in the alternative comedy scene who are just kind of grinding and making their living by the work they churn out every single day. And it's a lot of fun. So who knows what kind of projects we're going to create in the future, but just being able to know all the business aspects and being able to get all the wonderful tax write-offs and things that we know so much about now. I'm very interested to see what we'll be able to create our own, as well as who will be able to create, what in the future, whether it's riding with them or, as we said before, being able to get a job as a production staff and going from there.
Right, exactly. So we'll just kind of keep everyone updated if we're like, hey, we got an interview, or we got an interview, but...
We'll call you. Mom, I did it.
We did it. We'll cry every time we're rejected.
I'm gonna be on Judge Judy.
Oh my god,
an audience
that'd be
member.
Amazing. I want to be bailiff.
Yeah, even the bailiffs
Would I be
are
a good
actors.
bailiff?
It won't actually protect
I know
her.
when I'm an actor, I could pretend to be a bailiff.
You can rush the judge in the shows. No one's going to stop you.
Oh, of course. I would tackle every single person that would speak up. So we'll just update you guys with that. Like he said, we're going to start taking classes at UCB hopefully soon. We'll kind of keep an updated on that as well. So let's go on to our next segment. Every week we're going to review a restaurant, something that was either iconic to Hollywood and LA or something that a local recommended to us. And we're going to do some things around here that are well known, like, I don't know, like hiking the Hollywood sign or Griffith Park or things like that. And we're just going to kind of do a quick review of like what we thought, if it was worth it, all of those things. We call this segment Review the Stews and Do's. Alright. Hopefully you understand where that came from.
We'll see if that sticks.
Oh, it will. I'm gonna make sure it sticks. So, the restaurant we went to was called Porto's. It was recommended by some friends who we met in Utah doing comedy sports. His name is Jake Jorgensen. He lives out here, and his wife Jessica. We went there with them a couple days ago. It's in Burbank, and it's kind of like just like this bakery and like sandwiches and I think Cuban plates and things like that. It was really, really good. It essentially you just go inside. There are two lines. One is like the bakery line, and then the other is the cafe line. We were told to go through the bakery line because that's where you can kind of look through the window of their pastries, desserts, all of those things.
Right. It's huge too. It's like a pastry warehouse.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's monstrous. They have a parking lot, so you are able to drive down there if you're worried about being able to find a spot. They have a parking just for them right beside it with lots of it. Right, exactly. So, but huge place. So tons of people in there. It was obviously very good because it was very busy. But just the sheer amount of employees that they had and items that they had to buy, not only from the bakery but the cafe, as you were saying, it was astonishing.
And there was this guy that was like at the front that just was like asking, we had a question. We were waiting for Jake and Jessica, and he was like, "Oh, have you been here before?" And we're like, "No." And he was like, "Okay, do you like sweet or savory pastries?" And Andrew said savory, I said sweet. So we went and got what's called a potato ball just for free, just so we could try it, which was awesome.
Nice.
He's like, cool. I like both of them. He's like, cool. Me too.
I don't work here.
I just wanted to know.
Just a fan.
So he went and got the savory thing for Andrew, which was a potato roll, or a potato ball, excuse me. And it was just like...
They both sound good. Potato roll sounds good.
I've had a potato roll.
Oh, yeah, right.
They are a real thing. And so it was just basically like fried mashed potatoes surrounded in, like, as a ball, and it had like meat and basically our friend
like a little mini shepherd's fried pie or
yeah,
something.
kind of, but like I don't know.
Real good.
Our friend Jessica described it as like a
You refer to yourself as our friend.
No, Jessica Jorgensen. She described it as like a Sunday dinner in a ball, and that's pretty much exactly what it tastes like. Good. It was really good. And then the sweet thing he got was just a cheese Danish, I think, for me, which was... It was so good, super, super flaky, like the best tasting.
Never show up on time.
Yes, it was super, like, I hate her, she's a bitch. And so it was really good. It was just like free, just gave us like a whole thing for free just to try it, and we're like, okay. So just a tip, even if you've been there before, just sit at the front like you have no idea what you're doing, like we did,
free stuff.
and you'll get some free stuff. So just recommending that.
Sure. And this is definitely a recommendation. I'm sure we'll go to plenty of places
we loved it.
We'll say, hey, don't go to this place. There's lots of places that are hyped up, the Pink's hot dogs of the world.
Yeah, which we haven't tried. I'm sure we will.
This is definitely a place that you should go. We're definitely going to go back, Porto's.
And one that I never heard of either. And like this, I thought that we would maybe start with one that was a little more iconic, but... And
there's multiple locations, so we'd tell you to go to the one in Glendale, but I'm sure they're all roughly just as good. So
we went to Burbank. So yeah, we definitely recommend it. Very, very good. I think I got the torta, and you got the feta sandwich or something like that.
Like it's fancy Italian grilled cheese.
Yeah, very good. We recommend. Also had the creme brulee and the tiramisu, both very good.
Oh, hell yeah.
So yeah, definitely recommend that place.
All kinds of stuff. So a fun place to go too. There's it's very busy, so nice place to go on a date and kind of feel like you're out in the city. Then another interesting thing that we were able to go to as far as a review on an activity. It was my brother's 18th birthday, and he's kind of a sourpuss when it comes to fun things. We thought about taking him to Universal. We thought about, since he can't legally smoke a cigarette anymore. That was our plan. Then they changed the law. Yeah. No. But he's really into anime, and we looked around for stuff, and we found out that Funko Pop, I'm sure everybody's familiar with these little Funko Pop, I don't know what you call them, dolls, collectibles stand. They're all connected to pop culture. So both characters, fictional and non, they've created these little dolls, and Funko Pop has a huge store, their flagship store on Hollywood Boulevard. So we went down there and checked it out. And it's really cool. It's interesting. It's free. It's family friendly. So it's a thing that almost anybody can go to. You don't have to buy anything. but to describe it as we went through, there's all kinds of maybe even bigger than life-size versions of these Funko.
Oh yeah, Funko Pops. They're
Funko, not Funko.
Yeah,
Funko
yeah.
Pops.
No, they're like huge. They're not life size. They're like massive.
So you kind of go through a little mini Marvel world as you first enter. There's Black Panther standing over this giant waterfall. You've got Captain America. You go into the Marvel room and there's a giant Thanos Funko Pop sitting, on the wall that's larger than life, and a Groot, and they kind of make it atmospheric. It kind of feels like you're a little bit in a Disney ride.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just an interesting thing to look at,
Right. Especially for free, you're killing time. Right. It's air conditioned. They have clean bathrooms.
If you have kids, if you gotta, entertain like my brother-in-law, like we did, it's really cool. And there's a bunch of different fandoms. There's a Harry Potter room. There was a Stranger Things corner.
There's a Jeff Goldblum Jurassic Park, like giant T-Rex bursting out of the wall, and he's, his classic image from that movie. He's injured and in the back of the truck, and you can kind of get in there and take a picture with it. But that's really cool because it's giant life size. There's, of course, all of the Disneys, the
Star Wars.
The Star Wars. They don't have the child, aka Baby Yoda. I asked multiple people, which I'm sure they got every freaking day, because they barely had any like regular Mandalorian stuff, so I was very surprised. But sorry, go ahead. You were saying Stranger Things.
Yeah, Stranger Things. There was a horror section.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising.
Wars.
This family section, or family seemingly company, we went back and they had every horror movie imaginable. No real murderers. No, there were no Jeffrey Dahmer Funko Pops. But
I was actually surprised by
Pennywise
that. I was like, people would buy
Freddy
that
Krueger.
crap.
Oh, no doubt.
But yeah, so just pretty much every fan fiction you can think of. There are TV shows, other random movies.
A giant anime section, which
anime,
I don't know
Rick
very much
Morty.
about, so I won't get in there. But yeah, big Rick and Morty section. And
so it was cool. We recommend, it's definitely something to do with kids.
Take you about 30 minutes to walk through if you really look at everything, and maybe stop at a few places. We went to the sports section, and a couple of things they need to. So hopefully the restockers are listening to this podcast, but
I'm sure they
need more Tom Brady. They didn't have any. I assumed that they would just all be at the front in a lock case that we had to ask an attendant to, but I was
right next to the Baby
disappointed
Yoda.
that was incorrect, as well as they didn't have yellow coat Freddie Mercury, and that's what I wanted, or yellow jacket from the '86 tour, but was able to get those somewhere else. But they were all pretty cheap, and there's almost anything that you are a fan of. They've got some kind of piece of pop art from that series, so definitely a fun place to check out, of literally just to wander around and go, oh look, that's kind of fun, look at how they did this thing, look at that Ron Swanson, or look at that fun R2-D2, and those kinds of things. So whether you buy something or not, you can take a bunch of pictures and see lovable creations of your past nostalgic fun.
And this is on Hollywood Boulevard, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Funko Pop. It's kind of at the tail end.
What the Funko Pop?
What the Funko Pop? It's kind of like at the tail end of the, basically where the Star Walk starts or ends, however you want to look at it, I guess. Anyway, so we recommend it as just a fun little thing to do. I'm not a massive fan or anything. It just was cool to look at. Okay, so now is the time to do an improv scene. So now is the time to do an improv scene. As we've said, we are comedians, so every week at the end of our show, we're going to do a quick scene based on something that happened. Obviously as we go on, we've been here for a while, so we'll just choose something that's happened in the past few weeks. But in the coming weeks, we'll do it just specifically to the past week of what happened. So we'll just really quickly glaze over. We decided to rip the Band-Aid off and just go to the DMV, get our licenses, get our car registration. It took us a total of 3 days to try to do all this stuff. And it was just a long process, because we brought the wrong documentation the first time, and I got it. I was told I had the right one, and then I went in, like, sat in line for this test because the lady didn't really tell me that I didn't need to take the test quite yet. So I wasted my time, had to get a new number because I was given a number. Guess I didn't know that she had given me a number. She was very, very bad at, like, telling me what to do. Finally got to the window.
I'm good at it.
Yeah, you're good at it. Yes, you are. And so I went to the window. The lady told me, oh, actually, my documentation was incorrect. And I'm like, but that lady at the front said that it was. And she's like, yeah, I know. I don't know why. So we had to come back the next day.
Perhaps she'll die.
So we came back the next day. It was like a really long, like, it maybe took us 3 hours for the both of us to get done.
So and then, plan ahead.
Right, so plan ahead.
There is parking at the DMV.
There is.
Ironically.
It's not, like, I struggled to get parking the second time. The first time I didn't struggle. But the second time, for some reason, it was a lot busier on a Tuesday than it was on Monday.
Right, and there is an application that you can fill out online before you get there, and that will save you time, so... Right. Little bit of a pro tip, there's parking there as well as apply for everything you can and make sure you have every single document and it's correct, because as Jessica said, they will kick you out once you've waited so long in line and finally got to the front. They will say, oh no, that one doesn't work, that one's not official, yada yada yada.
Right, exactly. So the whole point of this story is just we knew it was going to take a long time. At least I did. I told Andrew that it was, and then he didn't really believe me. He's like, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm like, I've been told.
I've been to the DMV, so
no, but it's I know it's California
bad,
DMV is like even worse, especially the Hollywood one. I'm like, it might take like a few hours. He's like, no, it'll probably be fine. It took a few hours.
We shouldn't have gone to the Zootopia district. I told you we should have went to Glendale.
Right. So, but the other interesting thing is that we had our first celebrity sighting. Seth Green of Robot Chicken and Family Guy fame was there. He got in and out like a rich person should. I believe that they should be able to do that. And then us poor people get to wait a few hours. Well, let's do just a quick scene based off of that.
Next. Are you A38? You have your pass?
Yeah. I am.
Let me see it. All right, what are we doing here for you?
I'm sorry, do you know who I am?
No, I don't know who you are.
Well, you don't recognize the red hair and,
No.
Being 5'2". No?
Are you one of Ron's, what's that director kid? Ron Howard's kids? Are you one of them?
No, although I could probably easily pass as one.
Interesting. No, I don't know who you are.
No, well, if I do this voice, will it jog your memory? Hey, Dad! Hey, Stewie!
Are you sure you're not Andy Griffith? I mean, I know you said no with this Ron Howard thing,
Andy
but
Griffith
I'm just trying to think
dead.
potentially there. Oh, you're right. Well, I have no idea, but, there's a long line behind you. What can I do
but this
for
is
you?
really important. I feel no one said anything to me, like, how they know me, and, like, I'm feeling a little self-conscious.
So we get a lot of important people. Everybody's got to get their ID. It's kind of a legality. The famous or rich, we all have to do.
Right. I mean, it's like, I come in and out of the DMV, no problem. I got money, I'm famous, all that stuff. But, like, every time I go in, no one says anything to me, and I feel like that doesn't, I feel like I have a little more notoriety than that, and so... Well,
let's just, perhaps let's get started on the paperwork.
No, I just really need you to know who I am.
Well, let's get you... What's your first name?
But if I say that, it might give it away, I really want you to
really need you to give me your name. I'm not sure if we can really go much further than this. I'm so sorry that I don't know who you are.
All right, okay.
I mean, you look great. If that's what you're fishing for.
Thank you. That's not what I'm looking for. I don't know. All right. My first name is Seth.
Okay, Teth.
Seth.
I don't think I've ever met a Seth. Nice to meet you, Seth. Okay, Seath.
Nope, that's not.
Excuse me. Is it a C at the beginning?
No, there's no A.
Seth. Yeah. All right, Seth, and your last name?
See, this is where it's really going to become obvious. Like, you're going to be so embarrassed by the time that you figure out who I am. Like, when I say my last name, you're going to be like, oh, that guy, you know? Like, and then, like, if I say my full name, then eventually everyone's going to, like, freak out. Are you that guy from
those cigarette commercials that got in that motorcycle accident?
No.
Is that you?
No.
Who is that?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, they're probably dead, so.
Probably. No.
I keep thinking you're a dead person.
Yeah, you keep thinking
it's one of those things. I guess I can't really think about, who you are. So let's get that last name again.
All right.
So people wonder why the DMV takes so long, but most people don't have these kinds of conversations. But this really brings the whole thing to a halt.
I'm trying. I feel like as the government should know who I am, and the public should know who I am, and I've done a lot of crazy things. No, but like you should already know who I am. That's my point. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the point of being famous if you have to tell people at the DMV what your name is, and like take off your sunglasses, outdoors in hopes that people actually know who you are, under those sunglasses. Do you understand how much crap I've been going through? My best friend is Seth MacFarlane, and everyone just knows who he is immediately. They go, oh yeah, that guy.
You're friends with Seth MacFarlane?
No, Seth MacFarlane. Another Seth.
You know what? Yeah, you're right. I came to this city to try to do something with my life, and I've just been working at the DMV. I'm going to get out of here. And people are going to know the name Vincent D'Onofrio. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to make something of myself. You take my job. What was it? Seth what?
Green.
I wasn't asking for your eye color. Your last name. And scene. So that's the level of our talent. That's how every episode is going to end. We're going to do a little 2-person improv. Sometimes it'll be good. Sometimes it'll be bad. Yep. A lot of times it'll be fun for us.
Yep.
So that was great.
Mostly just practice and kind of just getting stuff out there. Right. Improv is very up and down.
And next week we are going to talk about our first week here, tips and tricks upon arrival, another restaurant and activity review.
And do another improv scene. Like we said, this was long. We definitely are not going to go this long. We're shooting for more like a half hour to 40 minutes and like most. So thanks for listening all the way through. We just wanted to kind of give all that background and kind of talk about the preparation and all of these things. So just check out our social media. We are on Facebook, Moving to LA Podcast. We are on Instagram at Moving to LA Podcast. We are on Twitter at Moving to LA Pod. So you can go and follow those, rate us and review us as well. So just follow those social medias as well as our personal social media. What do you want to plug in?
Just at A Sprague. I'm sure if you type in Andrew Sprague, you'll find
it's not
all my social medias or felony offenses, so it'll all pop up.
Okay. And then my social media is Jessica Sprague on Instagram, and then Jessica_Sprague on Twitter. Okay.
Yeah, we mentioned those. Please message us, and we're definitely people who are going to try to build a tiny little community if we can. So we'd love to talk to anybody who becomes a fan. We know we're going to start off small, but who knows going to be listening to this episode particularly in the future. But reach out to us, message us if you have ideas or unique experiences. I think perhaps that's something we'll make out of the podcast is, featuring at the very end a story from LA from somebody who lived here or traveled through, something like that. So reach out to us in any way, shape, or form, and we would love to get in contact back with you.
Right. All right. Thank you guys so much once again. We'll see you next week. And to sign off, if you can make it here,
you've made it here.